Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Cyber Planet. My name is Karim Chata, and I am your host. On today's episode, we have a very special guest all the way from Germany, who is a cybersecurity expert in the automotive industry. Her name is Polly Gitau. Miss Polly Paribusana.
Thank you, Karim, and it's a pleasure to be here. Expert cybersecurity is quite a big field, but yeah.
Perfect. So, Miss Polly, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So, currently I work as a senior automotive cybersecurity consultant at Ceres Consulting. I've been doing let's say automotive cybersecurity for the past almost 2 years since I started towards the end of 2021, and I'm here up to now. Other than that, what I do for as a senior cybersecurity or automotive cybersecurity consultant is working with different automotive organizations, whether it's the OEMs, which in full means of original equipment manufacturers, or in other terms, you can call them vehicle manufacturers. So whether it's the likes of Mercedes, BMW, Porsche, etc. And then you have also suppliers who supply the different components. So it's more of like how do you enable them to integrate cybersecurity into the products they're producing. So for vehicle manufacturers, it would be the car itself, the whole vehicle. But then for suppliers, it would be the different components. So in your car, you'd find maybe you have an infotainment system. It's not manufactured by, let's say, the vehicle manufacturer, so either that's supplied by someone else. So what the vehicle manufacturer does is bringing in all these components together, or more of like assembling them so that you have the finished product. Besides that, I'm a founding member of Women in Cybersecurity, or WICIS in Germany. It's a global organization started in the US where we tried to extend the mission of recruiting, retaining, and also advancing women in cybersecurity, specifically for the DACH region. So Germany, and then you have our neighbors in Austria and Switzerland. Other than that, I also volunteer as part of the ASRG, which is in full, it means Automotive Security Research Group. I'm part of the vulnerability technical team, as where we are trying to focus on responsible disclosure of vulnerabilities specific to the automotive industry. For the IT world or the usual setting, you'll find that has been given quite much attention, but for automotive cybersecurity, it's still, I'd say it's quite fresh. So we're still trying to see like how to ensure this continue being done, where if a researcher finds vulnerabilities in a specific component, even in a vehicle, how do they report the affected parties?
Yeah. You have a very interesting background. Now, just to understand you as Polly, how did you get started in cybersecurity?
Well, for me, I'd say it's actually in USIU, considering we studied at the same university. So my journey, I'd say it began with like USIU was offering some IBM certification course for application security specialist with using one of their tools, AppScan. I think the name has changed. And for this, I'd say the course was taught by Dr. Paula Musuva, and I think during that course, the only thing I knew about cybersecurity was just hacking that you could see in movies. But then in this course, we saw like you could be able to, let's say, do an SQL injection, because we had like a demo banking app, and we did like an SQL injection, and then you're able to see, you can be able to view people's bank accounts, or even you can do a cross-site request forgery where you're able to manipulate, let's say, someone's transaction, which was quite interesting. And then having the tools to do that, you're like, you can actually detect such vulnerabilities and even fix them, let's say, if you're at the development phase of that specific application. So seeing that quite sparked an interest. And then later I went to do my concentration in choosing forensic information technology and cybercrime, where you're doing more like how do you do forensic accounting, how do you do forensics when it comes to after a cybersecurity incident or even an attack, and then pursued different certifications and went on to start my career, let's say in cybersecurity at KPMG, and I was
Yeah.
also doing some internships then.
Okay, that's awesome. Feel free to correct me, I might be wrong, but I think you initially started in the or probably progressed into GRC. But making that transition from GRC to the automotive industry, what really drew you to this specific industry?
I would say for me, I do love cars, and having to combine two things that I like. So besides loving cars, I've always been passionate, or I became passionate about cybersecurity. Like, how do you make the whole digital workspace more secure and trustworthy?
Yeah,
And combining these two, it wasn't an opportunity I couldn't miss. So I would say when coming to Germany was quite a big deal, since when you look at the German manufacturers, even the brands we see, it's quite a big
yeah,
uh, automotive player. And like, let's say in Kenya, yes, we do have like one or two vehicle manufacturers, but it's not, you can compare the massiveness of the German automotive market with the, let's say, the African market, for example.
yeah. I must agree with you on that. Now, just trying to understand generally in the automotive industry, what is the current state of cybersecurity in that space?
I would say the current state for cybersecurity, based on what I'm seeing, is vehicles are becoming uh, very connected. So you'll find there even terms people seeing laptops on wheels, smartphones on wheels. I think the most recent one I've heard is a data center on wheels. This is because you're finding we have moved away from the traditional or even just having the functionality of the vehicle being just transporting me from point A to B. You're seeing in vehicles they're coming with, let's say, an automated parking assist where if, let's say, you have small corners or even a small parking space, you can just come out and then the car will help you to park. Or when you're seeing like vehicles can now change lanes.
Yeah,
So with that, you're seeing with this interconnectedness of vehicles, you're seeing that it's becoming like a good, or not say a good, I would say it's becoming a haven for hackers, since they're seeing like what can we do to compromise these vehicles, since there are a lot of, I would say, entry points. For example, cars can connect to Wi-Fi's. They have like you can also use like the normal telecommunications network where you find they are having eSIMs or even SIM cards in the vehicle just to enable that connectivity. And then if you
mm-hmm.
move to autonomous vehicles where you have self-driving vehicles, you're finding for them they need that connectivity, whether it's communicating to the cloud, they capture data as input, send that to be processed so that it becomes an output, and then they can decide, do I need to change the lane, do I need to brake, such things. So you're finding with this, it has become, it has brought like the deep concern to have automotive organizations to think about cybersecurity. Think after the Jeep hack, which was quite, it showed like the automotive world, yes, cars can be hacked and could have serious repercussions, because with vehicles, it's not like a normal IT system where you can just switch it off. You have someone might be driving it and then someone takes over and all hell breaks loose, because either the person gets into a bad accident or when they cause like other bad accidents. So like you're saying, like cybersecurity has become, it's becoming more and more important for different players, whether it's the automotive organizations or the different suppliers. Another thing I would say, regulation is also driving some of these, or even helping organizations to now embrace cybersecurity, because you have like in the European region, especially you have these the UNASER or UNR 155, which is requires the establishment of a cybersecurity management system, and also for any cars being produced in the countries that form the UNASER, which is I think the United Nations European Economic Region, something like that. And you find
Yeah,
like you have more than almost like 60 or 64 countries. And for you to sell cars, you need to abide by these rules. The same way the I would say EU did with GDPR, it's kind of the same. So this you find like you have to employ or even you have to comply with these regulations. And for that, it also transcends to the different suppliers that these vehicle manufacturers are having. So even finding like as they're doing like RFQs or requests for quotations or requests for proposals for certain components or parts that would go into the vehicle. They're also
Okay.
trying to bring in the cybersecurity requirements because these are requirements by the regulation for them to make sure that any risks that would emerge or be posed by suppliers, so that would mean either the component they have to make sure they're managed.
Okay. Now, when you come to the modern cars, I think we have seen a lot of advancements in the automotive industry. Self-driving cars like Tesla, etc., cars being connected to, as you mentioned, to the cloud or to the cellular networks, etc. Now, what are some of the common threats to these modern vehicles?
One would say when during Tesla, it's quite a good example. So you'll see like nowadays like OEMs or vehicle manufacturers are trying to like sell some things or even using the subscription models for certain functionality in the vehicle. So, and for this, like maybe you need an update for that so that it can be activated once you've paid for that. So
Yeah,
I think I've seen either Mercedes or I think also Tesla has such a feature. So if, for example, it's heating for your car, it doesn't come already activated. So for you to use
yeah,
that functionality, like let's say heated seats, you need to pay for that, and
mm,
then maybe an update is issued to your vehicle. So with
yeah,
this, you're finding like either as hackers or malicious people, they might not want to pay for that, so they decide, what can I do to manipulate so that I can activate this illegally without paying for that subscription fee. So
yeah,
I think these different functionalities that have been brought about, whether it's having the subscription model, having like over the air updates, the same way you'd update your laptop. Let's say Microsoft issues updates and then yeah, you do your Windows update, you see like, yeah, I have new updates. You also see the same scenario is coming to vehicles.
yeah,
Whereas in like on your infotainment, it says, yeah, you have an update for 1, 2, 3, 4 things. Either they're fixing or patching some bugs or even adding new functionality and such. So with that, also it's creating like it's I would say it's attracting hackers because the moment you're able to let's say manipulate updates, if let's say they're not well signed, so that means they can be able to install either have their own backdoors installed in those software updates, especially if we
yeah,
don't have like proper security controls to mitigate such scenarios. Then from the whatever is delivered into the vehicle, yeah, it's be even malicious and no one knows.
yeah.
Other than that, I would say I think the remote functionality where, or even the connected apps where let's say I can use my phone to open the vehicle,
Mm,
you're finding that people are being able to manipulate that even if you have the keyless entry. For example, maybe you might have seen some videos where people have an antenna near someone's house and then later
yeah,
you have someone else is near the car and after a moment they're just able to open the vehicle and drive it off. And most of the times you find like these vehicles being stolen, they do end up in the African market. Since even at times you do hear of stories where Interpol is chasing people because they're found with stolen vehicles.
okay,
So
that's interesting.
having those features, yeah, whether it's connectedness, whether it's over the air updates, that functionality is what's I would say it's kind of posing a threat because it's attracting hackers to see what can they do.
Mm, okay, it seems you're having a lot of fun in that area of automotive because I'm telling you, not everybody is able to just jump into the automotive industry. But just trying to understand if somebody wanted to venture into that space, what are some of the key skills and qualifications are needed for, such a role, the one that you're in?
I think for mine, it's kind of since it's more of governance topics. If you look at it, the normal GRC context. So
Okay.
besides the skills again, like at KPMG, for example, the normal consulting where yes, things like reporting, presentations, doesn't you need them, communication skills because you're dealing with clients. Other than that,
Mm-hmm.
it's trying to make sure that you understand what's happening in the industry, especially like for Germany, which falls under the UNR 155. You need to understand what does the regulation say. It talks about establishing a cybersecurity management system. In IT security, you have information security management system. So if you have worked with that, the same skills can be transferred or even tailored to fit the automotive context. Because you'll find they're asking about the same thing that, yes, the senior management needs to accept that vehicle cybersecurity risks and have a commitment, even whether it's providing the necessary resources. And then the next thing you see, it moves to like project management. So project management can either mean you're building a whole new vehicle from start to end, or
Okay.
either you're building a certain component that is going to that specific vehicle. So component here can either be software itself or even hardware like ECUs, uh, electronic control units. And for this one, especially for ECUs of the small components, that you might need some knowledge with embedded systems. So you'll find like in the automotive world, there's AutoSA, which is automotive security architecture, which provides like common terminology in the automotive world. So if you're building something for automotive functionality, like you need to have, I would say, knowledge of that. You'll find like for some roles, for example, either you're working on a specific system, whether it's let's say assisted driving. Others, I'm not sure about forgetting the whole title, but for example,
Yeah.
for that you can find like in a certain role they're requesting you to become like this. If the supplier just builds that, you need to have like maybe some knowledge about how does the system work, and then look
Yeah.
at what code is going to, since code is also running in vehicles. So if you have the skills to, let's say, if you have done like the normal software, secure coding and such things, you might also need that. Because if software is driving most of these parts in the vehicle, how do you make sure that software that is being pushed to the vehicle is secure? And then for ECUs, it's more of like embedded system security. Having such knowledge can also help. Other than that, I would say uh, the normal no the normal skills that someone would require would suffice. And since automotive industry is also trying to come up with certifications, like for example, you find different people offering like maybe foundational certifications for automotive cybersecurity. You can also try and do that. Or even join schools which are also doing the same. They can find a course in automotive cybersecurity. I think there's a team was researching and I came across one or two. If you're lucky, you can also try and pursue that. Or even do something to do with automotive engineering, if let's say you're
Yeah.
transitioning from cybersecurity, and that one will give you the knowledge like how a car's what's the whole process of building a car from start to end, and then it will give you that background like why do you need one, two, three, four in a car.
Yeah. Wow, that's a lot of information and useful information. I'm sure our listeners will benefit a lot from just this conversation and you share your experience. But coming back to the topic, what are some of the specific challenges do modern cars pose compared to traditional vehicles?
Uh, Actually, that's a good question. At some points, when I look at cybersecurity or even some cyber attacks that are impacting or even vulnerabilities impacting the automotive industry, you kind of wish like, can it be prevented? go back to just having a normal car that doesn't have anything connected, or even going back to the classics. So with the classic
Yeah.
cars or even the traditional cars, you just have your normal drive, like it will be more of just moving point A to B. You have maybe the old radio with a knob. You have like
Yeah.
maybe you have the manual gear. Like there's nothing fancy that has been brought in, like whether it's automated braking, I don't know, automated parking. You don't have such things. So with this, you find like the classic cars, when it comes to cybersecurity, it's not even be that relevant, because you're looking at there's no interconnectedness. Like what are the, I would say, the attack vectors? The attack vectors I'm looking at, what parts can I use to try and hack or even exploit that vehicle? But then if we look at the modern cars, one, they have Wi-Fi connectivity, they have Bluetooth, they have cellular connectivity, they're connected
Yeah.
to the internet. Two, you have infotainment applications. Either you can be able to listen to music, I'm also seeing it. You can even be able to play games. Then also comes the question like, how sure are you that those applications being installed or that are being provided as secure? We have had issues where in Play Store, like, yes, you have the good apps, but also hackers
Yeah.
are found, or not even say hackers, I'd say attackers or malicious people have been able to come up with their own apps, put them on Play Store. They even pass, I would say, the checks that being done, but still end up in people's phones. Then,
Yeah.
other than that, I think because of the connected nature, so you find like I can use a connected app to check what's on my car, and then everyone on, like there's an article by Sam Curry who did, for him he is mainly focused on the normal, let's say nothing specific to automotive. So as a backbone, he was able to like go to different web applications owned by different automotive organizations to a point where
Okay.
he could be able to control or even unlock vehicles. Nowhere using like he was nowhere near the vehicle, it was more of using the applications of these connected applications. So finding
Mm.
like there's a lot going on. So for you to have like the car, yes, has an app, I don't know, for checking your, like for Tesla has an app.
Yeah.
If you have that app, maybe you can be able to open your car with it. But then how sure are you
Yeah.
like that application is secure? Or maybe if let's say I'm not enable multi-factor authentication, if you connect through a bad or even network Wi-Fi, someone can be able to hijack, let's say, your login credentials, and they're
Yeah.
using the normal social engineering tactics. And then after that, they're able to access your app, and maybe they can do other things. So finding having all these, I would say, features that like just trying to improve customers or even the drivers' experience, but they also come in or bring in a whole new attack surface. And like
Mm.
the old vehicles run, I don't know, what can you be concerned? Maybe not crashing or someone stealing your car like physically.
Yeah. Physical
Yeah.
theft. Yeah. Now, okay. So there are a lot of interesting things that you've just mentioned. Now, I remember recently I was watching a documentary on YouTube where they were talking about the future of the automotive industry is going to be flying cars and things like that. Now, just from your personal opinion, what is your perspective on that, and how will that look like for cybersecurity experts when we do get to that point where cars are starting to fly and things like that? Um, how do you think cybersecurity is happening in the automotive industry?
Well, I'd say that's a tough question, but I'll try to answer. So one, I think you'll be like playing with two industries because you have
Mm.
aviation and then you now have like automotive.
Yeah.
So having a flying kite to be affecting both, I'd say both sectors. And if we go to aviation, actually aviation is much stricter when it comes to cybersecurity or when it comes to safety. is the issue the moment you're able to hijack a plane, the
Yeah.
amount of damage you do, I'd say it's way much bigger than a single car. So fine,
Yeah.
I think in the EU and US, for companies, they need to get certain type approvals, and type approvals will be like you have the different cybersecurity requirements that you need to conform. And then
Mm.
for this, it's more like trying to show that when you're building the product itself, even I think it also cascades to the suppliers, but I'm not sure, but I would expect to do that. Like you have to make
Yeah.
sure that security was thought for during, or you had cybersecurity in mind. So the same way I've been saying shifting to the left, that's the same thing that is happening in both industry, whether it's automotive and aviation. So when you have a flying car, I think you'll need to get, let's say, approvals from the, if let's say you're working in EU or in the US, you need to get approvals from these aviation or even aviation authorities. And then
Mm.
after that, you also need to get approval from the automotive authorities. So you have like two players to play with.
Okay.
And I hope I answered your question, or did I miss something?
No, no, I think you're right on track. So
Yeah.
we are on the same page. Yeah. Now, I realized that just based on your explanation, you are doing a lot of things at once. Now, what are some of the challenges that you're facing?
I'd say for my role specifically, but it would also cut across to automotive cybersecurity. I would say there's more of limited or not that much knowledge, like especially when it comes to automotive cybersecurity. It's not like for IT cybersecurity, I can go search something, then I'll find it. So that you
Yeah.
find like it kind of becomes a bit hard since
Mm.
when IT cybersecurity was started, like it was quite limited. I'd say it's kind of the same thing that's happening to automotive cybersecurity. Before,
Okay.
let's say maybe 10 or 20 years ago, you never had so much information when it comes to certain, let's say, how do you make sure you do secure coding? You never had these things of maybe secure software development lifecycle, for example. It was to go,
Yeah.
let's say, to the 2000. 2000's a common thing. But then over the years, this has helped, like even where I've seen principles such as secure by default, whereby if I'm selling a product by default, it's secure to avoid the issues where someone forgot to change the default settings or default passwords so that
Yeah.
you can reduce the attack surface. So with automotive, when you look at it, like not having so many such resources becomes quite it a bit challenging, and if you're trying to move into the space, you don't have like that much data lying around. So either
Mm.
maybe you had a background with embedded systems that you're able to say, yeah, this works 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you can now try and see how do I bring in cybersecurity to the space. The other thing is, I think trying to, trying to explain like someone can take over a fleet of cars. I don't think it has happened yet where you find like multiple cars, someone hijacked a whole fleet of vehicles and then they're all, let's say, crashing into the river in the hurry. We haven't gotten to there yet. So at teams,
Yeah.
if you're trying, I've had people or even, let's say, some organizations saying it's kind of hard to go and explain like such things to, let's say, the board because they're like, has something happened in the past where you find like someone
Yeah. So
so trying to have, let's say, bringing people on board on cybersecurity.
mm.
Yes, the requirements are there, but then the other question is, are they going to practice cybersecurity after that? So if you look at, let's say, the vehicle life cycle, a vehicle can stay on the road even more than 15 years, or yeah, or let's say about 15 years. And as an vehicle manufacturer, you have to make sure
Yeah.
cybersecurity is being I'd say maintain, or it has been implemented in such a way that cybersecurity support still remains for that vehicle. The same way we have like Windows getting to end of life kind of thing.
Mm,
So with
yeah,
this, you're looking at how do you bring in like certain elements, let's say incident response, how do you tailor that to fit the automotive market? Because if there's an incident, how do you can't just stop a car or you would just like shut down systems because maybe someone is driving on a highway and they're driving like I don't know at full speed. You can just
yeah,
instantly stop the car. Yeah, that's a lot of damage. So I'd say having not just going back, it still goes back to lack of or having limited resources or knowledge about like automotive cybersecurity.
yeah. Those are well, I can say those are a lot of challenges that you are currently facing, but I think it's going to get a little bit better as time goes on because I think it's still a relatively new field in that industry, which hasn't really been tapped to the full potential. And that, as you had put it, that people haven't really seen the full damage in terms of the cyber threats facing, the automotive industry. That's why people are a little bit laid back in that light. So I totally understand where you're coming from. Now let's leave alone the cybersecurity experts in this. Let's just put that aside. What can people do, especially the car owners who are using the modern cars? What can they do to protect themselves and their cars?
Actually, that's a good question. Yep. It's more, for me, I would say if you're a car owner and you have like a connected vehicle, first, either you maybe have a connected application to that vehicle. So with these applications, you have, let's say, your credentials, your username and
Yeah.
password. Attempts for just use like not that they use weak passwords and
Mm,
maybe they never even activate their multi-factor authentication. So as a car owner, if I have these applications which are interacting with my vehicle, one thing I'd look at is how do am I using strong passwords? Have I enabled multi-factor authentication such that I'm not just logging in with my username and password? I don't have also added something additional. The same way you do with your mobile banking, for example, like
yeah.
you have something else.
Mm,
Two, I would say avoiding to connect to any Wi-Fi network. So I think I've seen some attacks where because by default the car is set to connect, let's say, to a certain guest network. When they go to the dealership, you find people can be able to establish like probe base stations with the same names,
mm,
and from there they can do the malicious. So how do you make sure like you have proper Wi-Fi settings, like not even using, even for your own Wi-Fi at home, you're not using like weak Wi-Fi passwords like you've created. I'd say more of like the basic cyber hygiene when it comes to Wi-Fi practices. Then the other thing is also updating your car. For example, you never know what kind of bugs or vulnerabilities might have been discovered.
yeah.
And at times, as a car owner, you may not even be bothered like what's the extent of the damage. At times, they just get updates. They're like, okay, we have updates. And especially for when it comes to laptops, you're like, yeah, I'm not
Mm,
updating the app. So you have like it kept Windows keeps issuing you that notification like you need to update, and then you can either ignore it or just do it at another time. So with
yeah.
cars, considering this the safety implication, I'd say making sure that you do the updates when you get them.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I think I've talked about that one. Yeah, which was more of like the vehicle backend, which goes back to the connected apps.
Mhm.
Oh, wait, one last one. Yeah, when it comes to your keys, especially like how you've been seeing the replay attacks, people have been able to
Yeah.
more of like stealing the radio frequency to your car key, and then they're able to yeah to steal use that information and rotate to open the vehicle, rather than leaving your keys near the window or near the door. Because we have this practice of, if I open my house, I just leave the keys near the door, something like that, so that I don't forget.
Yeah.
Either you have like something that blocks maybe those signals, or you just keep your car keys away from the window to avoid. Let's say it got to a point where insurance providers, like in the UK, they had stopped paying insurance claims because of cars being stolen using such methods. Because it's more of an issue with the car manufacturer rather than the, what do you say? Yeah, that's what they're trying to justify. They're saying the blame should go
Okay.
to the car manufacturer, not to the
Insurance company.
year.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Those are very good advice, and I totally agree uh, on some of the points. But I'd also like to add, you know, one point in terms of the advice, especially for the passwords. So number one, I think you mentioned about using strong passwords, but they shouldn't only be strong, but also unique. Because as human beings, we have the tendency of using passwords everywhere. Now, just imagine the password that you use on, let's say, to set up your connection, secure connection on the car is compromised. It means the attacker is gonna try to use the same passwords on different. I also think that's also another very important aspect that people should keep in mind. Now, moving on to the next question. What advice would you give somebody who is trying to pursue a career in the automotive industry?
One would say it's a very interesting field. To be honest, there's a lot. And one thing I've always liked about cybersecurity, it's so big. I think
Yeah,
most people, when you tell them about cybersecurity, that they think it's only about hacking and all these things. But then you look at this, the element of governance, or even at times you might find it's called strategy and governance, where people are trying to show that with cybersecurity can, let's say, drive competitiveness either as a company. So I find that you need to identify like what area of automotive cybersecurity do you want to do? Do you want to go like technical by be dealing with the, let's say, the ECUs, those components?
yeah,
I've been working with a certain system of the vehicle, because at times you might find like for certain automotive organizations, especially suppliers, they build,
mm,
let's say, systems. Let's say it's a LiDAR system. Uh,
yeah,
so for that, you'll find it kind of needs to understand how does it work. You'll find elements, meaning let's say how does it work, and having some knowledge of LiDAR systems. So you might find for that you'll need to do something specific for LiDAR, but also try
yeah,
to learn like cybersecurity knowledge on that. I'd also say if embedded systems could be also a good place to start, because you're dealing with ECUs in vehicles. So having that knowledge around how embedded system security, that would also help. Other things I've seen, I would say like systems engineering, especially on the technical bit, because you'll find either you need to do like, since you have to consider cybersecurity from the word go, where you need to do like threat assessments, doing some threat modeling, and
yeah,
then from there you're trying to see like what are possible attack paths someone can use, so that when you're doing the development, whether it's of the vehicle or even the component, how do you secure that? So having
mm,
that knowledge can help. So either you might find you're going into secure coding or trying to build knowledge on secure coding or even DevSecOps, and now with a focus with the automotive industry, if let's say you're dealing with connected apps, either they have APIs communicating between, let's say, the OEMs or even the vehicle manufacturer's backend, which is also interacting with, let's say, the vehicle itself. How do you make sure that's secure? Even the APIs, you're consuming APIs from different providers. Then the other thing is, if you're able to keep up with what's happening in the industry. I think at
mm,
times here, like especially in Germany, you can easily find that 2024 model, and like if you go back home, either unless you're living a lavish life, you'll find someone who's willing to buy the latest model, like in African countries, but here in Germany, when a car is produced, or when where you have, for example, I'm using Germany as an example since that's where I'm based.
yeah,
When if
where
a
you're
car
based.
is produced here, within like
Yeah.
let's say 1, 2, 3 months, the car may be it's on the road once they have announced or released it for production. So
Mm,
without like keeping up to see like what kind of trends, like what kind of technological advancements are being done with the into the vehicles, even when
mm,
generative AI was became such a big trend, you're also seeing the same
yeah.
is moving to the automotive industry. And
Mm,
something I think I've come across where people are looking for, let's say, engineers, whether it's in machine learning,
mm,
along those sides. So keeping up with these trends can help you like see where's the automotive industry going, what are the different, let's say, regulations or upcoming standards that will impact the automotive industry. At times, these standards can be, you may not find them, either you need to pay for them, but at least, let's say, even on YouTube or just to the Google search, you might come across some information. It may not be the whole standard, but at least you can see what's happening there. Then, other than that, I would say connecting with professionals in the field, they can help you or even guide you. Teams you can find people have experience or even the ones who are finding these vulnerabilities and then writing whole white papers on what they did, and with
yeah.
that you can learn quite a lot from them. And then if you find any free, I would say any free or any sources that can help you to gain that knowledge, that would be a good start.
Hey, thank you very much for such great insights, Pauline. Um, Now, I know you're very busy, you have a lot on your plate, and I don't want to keep you here forever, but can you please give us your final thoughts?
Okay. Uh Finally, to conclude, I would say cybersecurity is way it's a very big field and there's still a huge skills gap. I think automotive industry, if you go there, it might be a bit worse because it's still quite, I would say, new. Not that new, but yeah, compared to IT security, you'd say so. And if, for example, you have an interest or if you've ever thought like what is cybersecurity or you want to pursue cybersecurity, I'd say it would be a great time to pursue the career. It's more of like a niche kind of thing. There are not yet so many people, but yet there's a huge market that requires all these skills. So if you're
Yeah,
interested, actually advise to go and pursue them. And especially for women, since we only make up like about 25% of the whole workforce, and if we was to move to automotive cybersecurity, the numbers will even go lower. I'd say for all the women out there, if you plan to pursue cybersecurity, take the bold step. At times, you're not sure what you want. Like, either you're scared of what's going to happen. And I think at times, taking those bold steps when things feel scary might maybe the best advice or the best step that you have ever taken. Because at times, you don't want to be left like, what if I did this? Yeah, rather than having the what ifs. What about when you do it and say, yeah, I've accomplished this, let me bring in more people into the industry.
yeah, that's very true. Well, thank you very much for your final thoughts. Now, before we go, let me just give a little bit of a recap so everyone can be on the same page. So first of all, we started off by basically understanding how you got started into the industry, and that's through our great university, USIU, and where you got interested into the industry after seeing everything that can be done by, the cyber threats, I mean, cyber attackers rather. And then you got into KPMG, and that's where your journey officially kicked off. We discussed about some of the common cybersecurity threats in the automotive industry, and some of the attack vectors that we discussed were the Wi-Fi, cellular networks, the cars being connected to the clouds, cars being connected to other cars. Generally, it's in the connectivity space. That's where the number one threats come in, especially in this industry. And then another issue that you mentioned was generally in the regulations that are there, dealing with likes like GDPR, etc. And then we talked about some of the key skills and qualifications that are needed. So you mentioned that the industry itself, or the role itself rather, it's more of GRC. So you'll be requiring the soft skills that I think majority of cybersecurity experts that I managed to interview mentioned that. So the soft skills like communication skills, you're going to need the project management skills, understanding what's happening in the industry, understanding how system works, understanding about software, secure coding, having a little bit knowledge of embedded systems, and also getting certifications that are related to the automotive industry, specifically in the security area. So those are some of the skills and qualifications that are needed, in order to thrive into this industry. We talked about some of the issues or vulnerabilities, let me say vulnerabilities that are associated with the automotive industry. You touch base on hackers trying to get free access to different functionalities on the cars. Like you mentioned, the subscription fees. There are some features where you need to pay for subscriptions, but people will try to get it for free. Manipulating the updates, and also let me say cyber criminals trying to manipulate the remote functionalities that are found in the car themselves. Then we looked at some of the challenges that are there between the modern cars and the traditional cars. So most of the challenges were in the modern cars. So one of them was things being connected with each other, especially, for example, the Wi-Fi, the cloud, etc. Things are just generally connected in that way. Also, you touched base on, for example, the modern cars will have automated braking, parking. So that's one area, which attackers could take advantage of to, do cybercrime. And then in the traditional cars, the attack vectors are very small or almost to zero. But we mentioned one of the attack vector is the physical security of the traditional cars. But in the modern cars, the attack vectors are very big. So the wireless connectivity, the applications themselves, the software updates. So those are just some of the attack vectors. And then we looked at for the modern cars, they have applications. Now we don't know if the applications are secure or not. So that's one area that our special guest touched based on. And then, yeah, I think I mentioned about the attack vectors being minimal in the traditional vehicles. Some of the challenges that you, Polly, mentioned that you face: number one, limited resources and knowledge. And then another challenge is trying to explain the threats to different stakeholders, and then people being on board on cybersecurity and having them to actually practice cybersecurity and putting the controls in place, security controls, let me just say it that way. And then we touched base on the advice that you gave to people on how they could protect their cars from such type of attacks. So number one, you mentioned on the perspective of passwords. So number one, use strong passwords, use two-factor authentication, and then use unique passwords. And then Ms. Polly mentioned that you need to have proper Wi-Fi settings on your car so that it doesn't connect to every Wi-Fi that let me say, senses that it's near the car. Another thing she mentioned about updating your car. Don't leave your keys near the windows or the doors in order to avoid the replay attacks that are happening right now. And then finally was the advice that you will give to somebody who is trying to get into the industry. You mentioned that the career is very big, so there is an opportunity for everybody. So nobody has to be scared to get into the automotive space. Understanding how things work, you need to also understand about the embedded system security. You need to have security engineering knowledge. You need to have knowledge in the secure coding and DevSecOps. Also, just keeping up to date to what's happening in the industry, especially in the automotive industry. You know what new chip is being rolled out, etc. Also, you need to have an understanding of the regulations and standards and how do they affect the automotive industry. And then finally, she said you need to get connected with the cybersecurity professionals in this space. So just before we close the session, I'd like to also ask, is there any, let's say, specific cybersecurity communities that you know of where people could, try and go and venture in and join so that they could a little bit get the taste of what the industry is all about? Do you have any idea of such?
Yeah, I did mention about ASRG. It's called Automotive Security Research Group. Anyone can join it.
Oh.
And they started a group for women. I don't know, like in Johannesburg, there's a chapter kind of thing. So I did see they did hold an event. So even the African market, I think ASRG, yeah, Johannesburg, something like that. Yeah, would be close to you. I'm not sure whether there's any other. I only know of the one in South Africa. Maybe there might be, but I'm not sure. It's a good place to start. But I'd say if you've ever attended, is it Hackfest or HackerCon? There's one of the conferences where they've done the Institute of Automotive, so you might find a community there. So either people attended a conference and are speaking on automotive and decided to do something. So LSRG is the main one I know, and then the others would be more of like you stumble upon them by luck.
Okay. So, guys, you need to also make sure you're attending all the cybersecurity conferences. You never know, you might stumble upon something. So, finally, we came to your final thoughts, and your final thoughts were cybersecurity is still a huge industry, and there is a lot, of specializations that haven't been really tapped into fully. So there is a huge skill gaps, especially in the automotive industry compared to other industries that are there. So if it's the applications, if it's the network, etc. So specifically for the automotive industry, there's a huge skill gap. So guys, you may feel free to, try and venture since the opportunities are, open in that space. And then also she just mentioned in a light note that if you want to get started into this industry, just get started. You shouldn't have cold feet. Just start taking the small steps so that you can, just pursue this career in general. So guys, thank you very much for being here with us on this episode. Polly, I'd like to say asante sana for being here with us, spending your time with me, discussing about your role and generally about the industry, and just sharing your knowledge to the general public about this space. So, asante sana.
Thanks for having me, and in case you get follow-up questions or you have anything to ask, yeah, feel free to reach out. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure, and see you on the next episode, guys. Take care. Bye bye.